Good morning, namaskar, hello and welcome. My name is Bhuvan. This is the Indian Express Explained, where we take a look at the major news, the major articles that you ought to be focusing on during the course of your preparation. Okay, let's get started. The first topic, the first article that comes to you. So the Prime Minister sent out a tweet yesterday. Okay, and this was the headline of the article: the World Intellectual Property Organization (WIPO). Okay, now that has gone ahead and released a report, and that report has some very good findings for India. Okay, India is registering year on year the highest growth in terms of the patents filed. Now, what does that tell you? That tells me that the research, the innovation ecosystem in India is now thriving. Okay, it's growing day by day, right? So let's look at this entire article, and more importantly, from the examination perspective, let's try and catch the gist of the evolution of the Indian patent regime. Okay, right from say pre-independence up until say 2023. How has that worked out for us? Because that is one area from the mains perspective that you ought to have a fair idea about. Right, let's get started. So this is the headline. India sees record 31.6% rise in patent applications in 2022 ahead of China and UK. The key word here being rise. Okay, which tells me that okay, the growth is being registered by the Indian innovation ecosystem. But as an absolute figure, you still find that the Chinese dominate this entire, say, intellectual property regime. Okay, they are the ones who are filing the most number of patents. But as a country, India is going up steadily. Okay, obviously that has to do with the base effect. We didn't have a thriving regime earlier. Now, obviously, that has been the focus in the last 11 to 12 years by the government of India. Okay, so let's go ahead and understand. Global patenting activity soared to new records in 2022, essentially Indian and Chinese innovators. Okay, now these are the countries that are leading this entire thing. China, US, Japan, Korea, Germany, essentially those countries that have a major innovation ecosystem, So if you are remotely aware, you can straight away go ahead and name products, inventions that have come out of those countries. Okay, say daily utility objects that find their origin to those countries. Now India is also catching up. Okay, so patent applications by India grew by 31.6%, extending an 11-year run of growth unmatched by any other country among the top 10 flyers. What does that tell you? That we are making steady progress. If we are unbeaten for the last 11 years, we are registering growth year after year. That tells me that something is being done right insofar as the Indian innovation ecosystem is concerned. Okay, so the World Intellectual Property Indicators Report, WIPO. This is the organization. It's one of the primary bodies of the United Nations, by the way. United Nations has 15 primary bodies, okay, and one of them is WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, which has gone ahead and released this report. The headquarters of this, you ought to know, is in Geneva. Bulbul Coder, good morning guys, thanks for joining, thank you. Right, so again, if you aspire to go ahead and, well, make yourself have the entire PDF of this lecture, you go ahead and connect with me on my Telegram ID. I will upload it at around noon this afternoon. Right, so let's go ahead and understand the evolution of the patent system in India, or the patent regime in India, more importantly from the UPSC perspective. Let's understand first what is a patent. An exclusive set of rights granted for an invention. Now it could be either a product or a process. Okay, that is simply put a patent. Now when you look at the journey of the Indian innovation regime or the Indian patent regime, right since say pre-independence up until 2023, you can go ahead and roughly break it down into three parts. Okay, pre-independence, post-independence, and then 1991 onwards, say the liberalization, privatization, globalization that you study about. Okay, so pre-independence. The journey of the Indian patent regime, pre-independence, post-independence, and globalization. Now from the constitutional perspective, guys, let's have an understanding here first. The Constitution of India, and you must have read this, mandates that no one shall be deprived of property except with the authority of the law. Now, in the larger context, a patent is a property. An organization might have, say, complete ownership over the patent that they own, right? So which means that there is a positive constitutional entitlement regarding recognition of patents, right? So my right to property becomes my first determinant of patents. Thereafter, you look at your DPSPs, yes, the non-enforceable part of my constitution, which states that the government should ensure the promotion of public health, reduction of inequalities, and securing of systems that ensure ownership and control of resources, more importantly for the common good. Now you understand that a patent, yes, is eventually a product or a process that has some human utility, right? So this is my second part, the second determinant. First is right to property, second is my DPSP, and the third you look at, the fundamental duties. The Constitution of India only encourages Indian citizens to have a scientific temper and prescribes to develop the spirit of inquiry and reform. Fundamental duty. So from the constitutional perspective, from the polity angle, there are three determinants that eventually recognize the patent system in India, or are the, say, fundamental framework behind the Indian patent regime. Okay, let's go ahead and understand them one by one now. So the basis and limitations for IP rights. Like I told you, number one, right to property. Number two, the directive principles of state policy. And number three, the fundamental duties. Now, I have just told you that you are looking at three particular, say, demarcations of the Indian patent regime. Let's understand what the situation was pre-independence. So, obviously, we inherited it from the Britishers. And that time, you had the Indian Patents and Design Act 1911, right, which was in force. Obviously, that had a enforcing body, which was the Controller of Patents and Design. Now, the changes. After independence, you find that the first action regarding the patent regime comes in the year 1970 through the Indian Patents Act of 1970. Okay. Today, when you talk about, say, India being the pharma hub of the world, that our pharma industry is thriving. Yes, we're exporting medicines to many number of countries. Well, if you go ahead and understand the patent framework behind that, a lot has to do with two committees, specifically the Justice Rajagopal Iyengar Committee. Okay. The other one being Bakshi Tekchand Committee. Two committees that made my patent regime, specifically very, very robust in terms of making sure that my pharma industry was now going to go ahead and export medicines to the rest of the world. Okay. So this is essentially these two committees. I would suggest you make a note of them, by the way. The Bakshi Tekchand Committee and the Rajagopal Iyengar Committee. Both of them were the fundamental framework behind my Indian Patents Act of 1970. Now the important bit. After 1991, the LPG that we know of, okay, you find, well, obviously that time you had the GATT, the GATT, the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, that was adopted by the WTO later, TRIPS agreement it became, okay. So this is it. These two were to make sure that, well, you had a common framework globally. After all, a patent will lead to an innovation, may lead to an innovation, and so to provide a common framework globally, India went ahead and synchronized its patent regime with the TRIPS agreement, and obviously it was in fundamental line with the GATT. Now, one important act that you need to know is the Novartis versus the Union of India. Okay, this happened in 2005, and it's a landmark case insofar as the Indian patent system is concerned. Okay, very, very important. What did it do? Novartis versus Union of India essentially forbade or discouraged evergreening of patents. What is evergreening of patents now? This has been asked previously in the examination. Evergreening of patents, simply put, you have a product A. Okay, let's go ahead and understand it. So you have a product A. Okay, now under the Indian patent regime, you are given a patent for, say, 20 years. Which means after 20 years have passed, any other country, any other company can go ahead and say, design a similar product and claim ownership of it. Okay. So what would the multinational companies do? They would make minor changes to this product. Let's call it A dash. Okay. Minor changes that may not improve the efficacy of the product. Okay. And then they would go ahead and file another patent for 20 years. Thus, what would happen? They would have longer duration without putting in, say, the requisite hard work that was required. Yes, to make sure that they had ownership over that product or process, right? So this is the evergreening of patents that was discouraged in the Novartis versus the Union of India case, right? Let's look at the patent process. Very, very simple. Ruchira, good morning, good morning. How are you? Okay, so section 3D of the Indian Patents Act, it does not allow evergreening of patents. Why? To prevent innovator pharma companies from extending beyond the stipulated period of 20 years. Essentially to discourage monopoly. Everyone should get a fair chance at getting a shot at the idea. Multinational companies cannot go ahead and make minor changes and then claim patent for next 20 years. Right? So to discourage monopoly, the Supreme Court put in a very strong objection in the Novartis versus the Union of India case. Okay. The Supreme Court upheld the validity of section 3D. This is section 3D. Okay. Thus, look at this. The Novartis filed a patent for a form of cancer drug which was challenged in the Supreme Court. Okay. And thus the Supreme Court observed well that it was just a form, a minor change to the original drug. This is it. There was a minor change. It wasn't something that would improve the efficiency. It wasn't going to improve the efficiency of the medicine. Right? No, this wasn't happening. Thus, Supreme Court rejected this entire premise. Okay. Now, let's look at evergreening. From the examination perspective, I suggest you make a note of this. Obviously, you'll find the entire PDF on my Telegram channel, but still have a look at this. So, this is it. The process does not produce any increase in the efficacy of the drug. Right? If A just becomes A dash, well, that is evergreening. Yes, if you are going to improve a particular product, the ideal condition is that it should be improving efficiency. You can't just change minor components here, there, and then call it a completely new product. Okay, this is it. In many countries, you find that, well, it prevents the competition in the market and considered harmful to the market and consumers. This is why evergreening is discouraged. Okay, your neighbor, good morning. Tuhina, thanks for joining. Achal, good morning. Ruchira, I'm good. Thanks for asking. Right. So let's look at one more simple concept here now, Bolar exemption. Okay, now you will not find this in your books, but I suggest you have an idea of it because not every question comes from the books. So what is Bolar exemption? So for example, you own a company A, right? Now this company owns a product, a patent for a product X, okay? And you know that it is for 20 years. Now what if, say, company B wants to go ahead and say research on this particular product? Yes? Is there any mechanism in which, say, peer review can be done? Well, that is provided by the Bolar exemption of the Indian patent regime. Simply put, okay, this is it. The exemption is that it enables generic manufacturers to experiment with patented drugs and produce them in limited quantities. Why? Only for research. You can't go ahead and market it. You are going to go ahead and peer review your competition's product. That is the Bolar exemption that is provided under the Indian patent law. Okay? Right? Okay. What happens if the patent holder dies before expiring of the patent date? So you have a nominee also. It's not that it's a singular entity. Obviously, you have at times a singular entity, but an organization is normally the force behind the patent regime. Okay. Plus, in case if it is a singular entity, you obviously have a nominee who gets to decide what happens with the patent. Things are not so absolute that, okay, the person dies, the patent expires. It doesn't happen like that. Okay. This is it. The Bolar exemption. Now the exemption, you can understand, enables generic drug manufacturers to use an inventor's pharma product, yes, before the patent expires. Thus you can go ahead and launch your generic versions. Unless you haven't done research, yes, if there is, say, a foreign made medicine, okay, unless you have gone ahead and done research of this medicine, figuring out what are its components, what is the efficacy, what is the side effect, all of that needs to be known. Now, you can't go ahead and do it in isolation. The Bolar exemption is to make sure that innovation is increasing, that it is promoted, You see how India is now getting 31.6% year-on-year increase in the patent. How are we now becoming suddenly the top 10 of the innovation hubs in the world? Because the law provides for it. When you look at the history of Indian patent regime right since post-independence, yes, the entire focus, even in the 1970s, the Justice Iyengar Committee, because of the far-sightedness of the committee and the recommendations, which is why I said in 30 years later down the line, you are able to claim, oh, India is the generic drug pharma hub of the country, right? So these are the winds behind those sails, correct? So the Bolar exemption, again, very important for you to consider. Okay? Then you had recently the Patent Amendment Rules of 2021. Let's understand this now. Patent fees was reduced. Why? Why was patent fees reduced? Similar. If you are having to file more for a patent, if you are having to spend more money, then low-cost innovators that we know of, yes, individual innovators will get discouraged. So if you want innovation to thrive, you should not just focus on organizations, but also individuals. And thus to encourage both of the stakeholders, this was reduced. Yes, extension of expedited examination system. So earlier you had a specific time period, say 41 days plus would be taken. Yes, to go ahead for the controller of patents to examine your filing, come up with a ruling. Okay. Now that time period has been reduced. Why? Quickly, quick efficiency, quick turnaround time, making sure that you have ample feedback on whatever you have filed. Right? See how each of them is a stepping stone to where India is reaching today. This is how you frame a good policy. Okay. Patent prosecution highway. Now a set of initiatives for providing accelerated patent prosecution procedures. Yes. So this is again a global network essentially. Okay. A global network, the patent prosecution highway, so that your patent rights are not infringed upon. Okay. And please make sure that you know this, 20 years is the time period for which you are granted a patent under the Indian patent regime. Now, let's go ahead and understand a couple of more things. Okay. So what you cannot patent in India? Chalo, let's identify that first. Before we write about this, okay, let's understand what cannot you patent in India. Okay. Are there specific exemptions provided? Of course. 100%. Okay. Let's look at them one by one. Number one. Let me know in the chat box, by the way. If you are aware of any particular things that you cannot patent in India, let me know very, very quickly. So, for example, number one are frivolous inventions. Yes. Frivolous inventions cannot be patented in India. What do I mean by frivolous inventions? Tell me. It is those that will say harm the public order or morality or the health. Any of those. Yes. Public order, health, morality. If your invention harms all of these, sorry, you're not getting a patent. Next, you're looking at, say, methods of agriculture and horticulture. Okay. Methods of agri and horti. They are also not allowed. Sorry, not getting that. Right? Bataiye, if you're watching this live, very quickly let me know. Now, can you go ahead and patent traditional knowledge? Of course not. This is a part of the heritage of the country. How can you claim ownership over something that you have not invented? Right? Traditional knowledge cannot be patented in India. Similarly, you're looking at inventions related to atomic energy. Yes? Atomic energy, not allowed. Okay, have an idea because these are the general exemptions of what you cannot file in so far as patent filing in the country is concerned. Okay, you're looking at plants, animals, all of these can't be patented. Okay. And number 6, the final one that you cannot patent in India is the discovery of, say, scientific principles. Okay, scientific principles cannot be patented. You can't go ahead and patent gravity. Okay, unfortunately, you are not the one who came up with that idea now, are you? Correct? Correct. Innovation harming environment comes under this. True. Okay. Plants and animal products, like I told you, turmeric is there. None of those cannot be. Gambling machines, public order, coder. Correct. You're absolutely correct. In fact, there is one more. 7th also. Ek aur hai. Yes. There is one more that you cannot go ahead and patent computer programs. Okay. These are the general exemptions that are allowed or discouraged. Okay, what are computer programs? For example, pure computer programs, the ones that are running systems, that cannot be patented. Okay. Now, in terms of patent amendment rules, what changed? Now, this is the draft version, by the way. Okay, let me just clarify this. These rules are still in the draft version. They have not been confirmed yet. So, let's go ahead and understand and get a basic idea of what the draft rules are all about. Okay, number one, and we'll understand it in the simplest manner. Okay, so earlier I told you that the fees was reduced, right or wrong? Under 2021, the patent filing fees was reduced, but under 2023, what you find is that there is dynamic fees. Okay, dynamic fee is being allowed, which means given that if you are a poor innovator, then you will have to pay, dynamic fees are being allowed. Okay. What else is there? Now, one concept that you need to know is pre-grant opposition, the PGO. What is pre-grant opposition? Let's understand this first. Okay. Pre-grant opposition is nothing, but it is the opposition that you put in place after the patent is published, but it is not been granted. This is it. It has been published. It is up for consideration, yes, but it has not been granted yet. Okay. So, this pre-grant opposition, what you find, it has been allowed. Okay. Why? Because eventually the aim is to prevent unjust actions. Yes. This is it. So, some company comes up with some particular patent, you as an organization can go ahead, before it has been granted, file your opposition. Yes. Why? Eventually what happens? Patent protection is being ensured. Affordable generic drugs can come to the market because of pre-grant opposition. More structure will come in to the whole process. Right or wrong? True. Now, you also find that, well, so once an opposition has been, so for example, you had a product A and say company X comes and gives a pre-grant opposition towards this. So, in what time period should this entire dispute be settled? That is one concept that you need to be aware of. Correct? So, for right now, what you find is that 2 months is the time process, the time limit. In 2 months, a solution to this entire issue has to be provided. Okay? Earlier, your the timeline for filing requests for examination by the Controller General. Okay? So, earlier the timeline for requests was around say 31 months. Now that has been reduced. Eventually what is happening? You see, you are bringing in more efficiency in the system. Unless you bring in more efficiency in the system, how can you go ahead and claim that you have furthered the innovation ecosystem? Yes, this is the legal aspect behind, say, developing and formulating and strengthening your legal ecosystem. Okay? Sir, can we file patent on research papers? So, for example, coder, if your research paper is talking about an improved product or an improved idea, yes, and it has the potential to be scalable. You do realize one thing, coder, the point of a patent is that it should be of human use. Okay, it shouldn't be select for say just 5-10 groups. No, it should be of mass use. And so, if your research paper is bringing forth a new idea, it could be based on an existing product, but if you're increasing the efficiency of this product, and if there is a way in which you can scale that product for mass use, then of course you can go ahead and file a patent. Do you realize that? Okay. So, these are the patent amendment rules that have come into place of late. Okay. Earlier, in fact, you also had to disclose your manufacturing process. Your manufacturing process and your facility, So, your facility is in Hisar, Haryana, or where is it? All of that now you did not disclose. All of that is protected, that is granted under the draft patent amendment rules that, eventually are still up for consideration, by the way. This hasn't happened so far, right? So, this was the entire evolution of the Indian patent regime since independence. More importantly, this is an important slide for you, okay? And for more of more of a discussion on this, I would suggest you head over to the WIPO website. Okay, here you find that, well, you also find the challenges that are coming up in terms of the Indian patent regime. So we have discussed the good parts. What are the challenges? Some of them, for example, you see that now there is no need to disclose your manufacturing facility. Do you understand that will reduce transparency? That will reduce accountability? Yes. So you had the intellectual property appellate board. Now that has been abolished. So again, anyways your judiciary is overburdened. Yes. If you have to approach the judiciary for a patent process or a patent dispute, then again you're looking at the turnaround time that may not be, say, enforced. Right? So many challenges are there. Head over to the WIPO website and just make sure that you're aware of the entire process from pre-independence up until the draft patent amendment rules of 2023. Okay? Right? Let's go ahead and, well, answer some questions first. Okay? What's the fun if you're not answering questions? So, patents in India granted for the time period of, easy question first up. Let me know your answers. And you let me know this too. What is the name of India's first intellectual property mascot which has been launched by the Ministry of Commerce? Is it IP Bandhu, IP Nani, IP Dada or IP Dost? Okay. You will let me know your answers in the comment box. Leave your answers for me as you have been doing so far. Before I go forward, very quickly, if you haven't prepared or started preparing your optionals, okay, in my limited experience, get started. Seriously get started, because your selection is based on your mains, and your mains majorly comprises of your optional paper. Okay, and if you're doing it yourself, all the best, my best wishes are with you. But if you think you need help, if you need guidance under some of the best faculty for these subjects, PSIR, Sociology, Geography, Anthro, PABAD, History, Mathematics, Philosophy and Hindi Sahitya, yes, quickly go ahead and, well, sign up for the new batch that is beginning soon, by the way. Okay, you also get test series included with this, right? And so you will find that these batches, I have mentioned the different starting dates for each of them. Okay, ideally you should be looking to complete at least 50 to 60% of both your papers of the optional by, say, December last week or January 2nd, 3rd week. No after that, Don't leave so much for after prelims that you are swamped with what to do and what not to do. Ideally, you should do everything. For that, make the best use of now. Okay. And if you are signing up for this, I strongly advise you do. Use the code BALIVE. You get a substantial discount. And, well, this is okay. This is going to help you immensely. Chalo. Next one. Achal, thanks. Thank you. You are very kind. Okay, let's look at this. Supreme Court says cracker order applies to the country. Thankfully, not just to NCR. Okay, we are not the only ones who are missing out on the fun. So what types of fireworks are allowed and where? So you must have heard, no? Green crackers. Yeah? You know what are green crackers? Green crackers is a misnomer. They're not exactly green, by the way. We'll discuss what are green crackers, what are the type of, say, chemicals that are found. So you find some particular crackers will give you blue colors. Some will give you white colors. Some will give you red. Some will give you orange. Some will give you green. Which means, obviously, the chemical composition of each cracker is different. And obviously, if chemical composition is different, which means eventually the human health is also going to be detrimental. Yes, you're not going to be pristine health form if you consume those toxic fumes. Right? So let's understand them. In October 2018, Supreme Court had banned the production and sale of all crackers except green crackers. So that time you found that, well, this exemption was provided. Okay? And those with improved emissions, also known as improved crackers. Fine. Now it banned the sale of joint crackers. What are those joint crackers, guys? I'm sure you must have seen those red crackers, no? वो एक ऐसे line में आते थे. Yes? Like a complete bunch of them would be there. Then there would be one part here. You go ahead and light it up and the whole thing, there'd be complete pandemonium for 1 minute. Yes? So those joint crackers also have been banned. Okay? And it prohibited the use of barium salts. So we'll understand. Eventually, the point is to understand what is the chemical composition of my crackers. So in 2020, the NGT, it banned the use of all kinds of firecrackers in NCR, and it permitted in cities where you had air quality that was moderate or poor. Okay. NCR, you're looking at severe air quality actually. We are the special bunch in the entire country. So we have severe air quality. We are a step ahead of all of you. Whereas the rest of the country lags behind in terms of air quality and what they can breathe. Okay. So now let's go ahead and understand the composition of my firecrackers very quickly. ठीक है? चलो. Firecrackers typically consist of 4 primary ingredients. 4 चीजें होती हैं. Number 1, oxidizer, which means something that will eventually start the process. Fuel, that will sustain the process. Coloring agent, which you and I will enjoy, take our photos for an Instagram and Twitter. And finally, binder, which will eventually put all of this together. Simple. Oxidizer starts the process, fuel sustains the process, coloring agent is what you and I enjoy, and binder to keep all of this together. Those are the 4 components of my firecrackers. Okay. Now an oxidizer, for the cracker to catch fire, sustains the fire, gives it colors, holds the mixture in place. Now what are the coloring agents? The primary problem is with these, because these are of chemical kinds. Okay. So let's look at this. Barium, coloring agent. Okay. This has been banned by the Supreme Court, by the way. Have a look at it. यहाँ पे मैंने आपको दिखाया. Have a look at this. It prohibited the use of barium salts, Supreme Court. So what is the problem of barium? ठीक है? Harmful effect on human health, irritation, skin allergy, breathing difficulty, even cancer. Supreme Court said no barium anymore. Now what are the other colors that come out of my firecrackers? Okay, number 1, white. White means aluminium, simple chemistry. Okay, orange is carbon or iron, yellow is sodium, blue and green is copper compounds and strontium carbonates. Okay, and green is barium and its other compounds, associated compounds of barium. Okay, so these are the primary coloring agents that have been prohibited. Now, I told you earlier in the class that green crackers are in the news. So are they actually green or is it actually a misnomer? ठीक है, चलो देखते हैं. Green crackers. Now the process is that in green crackers you are going to reduce all of these barium, aluminium, carbon or say iron, sodium, all of this with less harmful agents. It's not exactly that they are green like we study in environment. It's just that वो तुमको आराम से मारेंगे. ठीक है? So green crackers replace harmful chemicals with less harmful chemicals. Thus not fully safe. Okay, it's a misnomer. Now the 3 broad categories of green crackers have a basic idea. Swas, Safal and Star. All of them have been developed by the Council of Scientific and Research. Okay, Industrial Research. So Swas, safe water releaser. This is the full form of Swas. It has a small water pocket that is released in the form of vapor when the cracker is burst. Thus you find that this suppresses dust. Okay, so it's a dust suppressor, Swas crackers. Then you're looking at star crackers, which are safe thermite crackers. Now they will not have potassium, sulfur, the rest of the chemical agents. Thus particulate matter is reduced. You must have seen PM 2.5, which can go ahead and lodge in your lungs, sorry, in your blood in fact. Yes, because they are 2.5 micron, you will find PM 2.5 can be found in your lungs, in your blood aram se. PM 10, okay, majorly found in your lungs. Okay, PM 10, why? Because it is slightly bigger in size as compared to PM 2.5. Okay, and Safal is the safe minimal aluminium, which has minimum usage of aluminium and uses magnesium instead. Right? So these 3 kinds have been put forward by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Swas, Star and Safal. Have a look at this, by the way. Okay, make sure that you know why is it being called green. One idea is that, well, you are looking at green crackers producing water. Have a look at this. Yes, so that's why they are called green. You're also looking at, well, they're removing dust, suppressing dust, which is why they are called green. Correct? They produce lower emissions, lower sound pollution, lower light pollution, thus green. So this is the idea. Why are they being called green? Okay, number 1, because they contain water. Okay, number 2, they suppress dust. Number 3, they have less noise pollution and sound pollution. And number 4, they have less emissions. Is this not a perfect question for an MCQ, by the way? You know, it's a very nice question for an MCQ. Half of the Janta will be unaware. Correct? So this is the concept of your green crackers, my friends. Okay? Let's go ahead and answer these questions ASAP. Green crackers are completely environment friendly and allow for sustainable use. Green crackers have reduced emissions of particulate matter, sulfur dioxide and NO2. Identify the correct statements. And question number 4, which of the following is not a part of the AQI, the Air Quality Index that is released by the Central Pollution Control Board under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change? Okay. Ammonia, ozone, methane, carbon dioxide. Have a look. Your city must have an AQI board. Okay. Most likely it will be showing you a wrong figure. Okay. But still go ahead and take a look at the components of AQI. Have a fair idea of what the AQI measures and what it leaves out. Okay? Right? Before I go forward, once again, small break. GS Foundation P2I course, finishing fast, by the way. Okay, our English batch starts on the 17th. English, which is bilingual, starts on the 15th. Hindi starts, well, it's just 2-3 days from now. Okay? In fact, tomorrow. Right? So go ahead. This is in fact the lowest price I've seen. 25,000 bucks. I wish this was the price being offered when I was preparing for my civil services. Yes, I have known of stories where people sell their land back home wherever they are coming from to come to Delhi and prepare for civil services. That makes no sense to me. You shouldn't put at stake the financial security of your family to go ahead and appear for an examination. That's just foolishness. So go ahead, prepare at a price point that is conducive and good for your interests as well as that of your family. Okay? Okay, let's look at the questions of yesterday now. With reference to the solar system, consider the following statements. The atmosphere of Jovian planets. Jovian planets are my, say, gaseous planets. Okay, these are the gaseous planets that I know of. Is thin as compared to terrestrial planets, which are my rocky planets. Now see the problem here. How can your gaseous planets, their atmosphere be thin? Does it make any sense? Firstly, common sense. Second, in terms of your terrestrial planets, because your atmosphere is thin, which is why the gases escaped away, which is why the rocky structure, they are rocky in nature. So, wrong. The terrestrial planets have lower gravity as compared to Jovian planets. Absolutely correct. 100%. Okay. And they have relatively higher density as compared to Jovian planets. Correct. We are primarily made of what? Rocks, minerals. The Jovian planets are made up of gases, which has the higher density. You know it by now. Correct? Solids. So which means this is correct too. So the correct statements here being 2 and 3. Alright. Which of the above may be classified as inferior planets? Chalo ye dekho. This is your Sun, Mercury. Okay. Then you have what? Venus, Earth, Mars. All of these go after that. So inferior planets are those that are towards the side of the Sun as compared from the Earth. Correct? The ones that are away from the Earth as a relative distance from the Sun are called the superior planets. Okay, this is it. Simple concept. So Mercury and Venus being your correct answer. Pluto obviously is not even a planet anymore. The International Astronomical Union threw it out because it could not go ahead and clear its gravity. Yes, it could not clear its orbit because it does not have a sufficient gravity. And well, Mars is a superior planet. So which of the above is classified? A only. Okay. Which organization launched the Cassini-Huygens mission? Saturn's rings, no, we discussed in detail yesterday. So the Cassini was launched by NASA, by the European Space Agency, as well as the Italian Space Agency. All three of them collaborated on the Cassini-Huygens mission. Okay. So all of the above being the correct answer. Which process was responsible for the forming of the terrestrial planets of the solar system? What is differentiation? It is the arrangement of your matter as according to density. Arrangement of my lithosphere as according to density. Which is why you find, my friends, that your inner core is made up of the densest material, Nephi. Whereas the light dense material, the less dense material is at the surface of the earth or just below it. Yes, how did that happen? Yes, what was the grand plan? The grand plan was differentiation. Degassing is to do with the construction of Earth's atmosphere. Accretion is the process. So what exactly happened? After the Big Bang theory, you had loose material that was floating around in space. All of this, under the gravitational effect of the sun, started to go ahead and coalesce together. Yes? And thus you had the first forms of planets that were formed. Correct? So accretion being the correct answer. Okay? Know each of them, by the way. If you haven't studied your solar system in terms of your physical geography, if you are unaware of what primordial nucleosynthesis is, if you are unaware of what accretion is, degassing is, differentiation is, my best advice to you is go ahead and study your solar system in depth. Okay? It's a part of your physical geography. You ought to know about it. The syllabus mentions it too. Okay? Okay, according to the Constitution of India, the same person cannot function as the governor of two or more states at the same time is unfortunately incorrect. Okay. What you find is that, well, so many instances that a governor has been given dual charge. Okay. So, this is false, which means my answer here being D. Okay. Straight away. Assertion reasoning questions have a fair idea about they're always asked by the UPSC. Okay. Draft constitution provided for the direct election of the governor is true. Okay. And the Constitution Assembly opted for the present system, the Canadian system in fact, we call it, of the appointment of the governor by the president is true. But does this explain this? No. These two are true statements that are not connected with each other. There is no correlation between the assertion or the reason, which means my answer here being both A and R are individually true, but R is not the correct explanation of A. Okay? Simple. Let's look at it. Who is the Secretary General of NATO? Jens Stoltenberg. Easy question. Okay? Austin Miller is to do with the US government. Yevgeny Prigozhin is the guy who dared to take on President Putin and I think paid with his life. And Frank Abagnale Jr. is the name of Leonardo DiCaprio from Catch Me If You Can movie, if you have ever seen that. Okay? So this being the answer here. Right, let's look at my individuals who answered the questions correctly. Pranjul, Vidisha, Pooja, Niraja, Prajakta, Shubham, Crystal, Koda, Rupash, Mandeep, Ayush, Swapnil, Vidit, Gatso and Target CSE. Well done guys. I'm especially happy to see that some of you got those questions correct, especially the degassing, differentiation, primordial nucleosynthesis question. You know, so be aware of those simple concepts. It's not very difficult. When you look at geography, it's science. You know, it's called the mother discipline for a reason, right? Okay. To the rest of you, by the way, please answer the questions of today. We'll discuss the right answers in the class tomorrow. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, any doubts related to what we discussed here, reach out to me on my Instagram ID. I'll be more than happy to go ahead and connect with you and clear your doubt for you. Okay? Right, my friends, this was the Indian Express Explained, where we took a comprehensive look at the Indian patent regime, and we also understood the whole discussion around green crackers. Okay? If you understood the two topics, if you understood the questions, the solutions, do consider leaving me a like. I'd greatly appreciate that. And I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, 7 a.m. Till then, have a productive day, and I'll see you tomorrow, 7 a.m. Bye. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.